This was to be our last long journey in the Soviet Union, nearly as far north as one can go. It's a wild land where millions of birds come for the summer, and the Arctic fox and the lemming endure the winter. This ancient Arctic tundra where woolly mammoths and musk oxen once roamed thousands of years ago. The musk ox has returned, and we've come here to tell its incredible story. This far north in midsummer, the sun never sets, and we landed rather late on a glorious, endless Arctic day. It had taken us 8 hours by plane and another 3 by helicopter to get here. We were met by our Arctic guides, the 2 tundra biologists, Natasha Maligina and Grigory Yakushkin, who's an expert on musk oxen. On the Taimyr Peninsula, in the valley of the Bikada River, close to 1 million hectares have been set aside as a preserve for the musk ox. It's nearly 4,000 kilometers from Moscow, and 3/4 of the way to the North Pole.
We set off to explore the Bikada River by boat. In this preliminary survey, we wanted to see what birds and mammals have gathered to live and breed and to enjoy the hot Arctic summer in this remote spot on top of the world. It was an extraordinarily disorientating feeling to be in a place where the sun shone just as brightly at midnight as it did at midday. It was a weird landscape. On one side of the river was the comparatively flat tundra, and on the other side a series of massive cliffs that looked man-made, like some strange Aztec or Mayan ruins. But these extraordinary bastions have been sculpted into their geometric designs by ice and snow, by wind and sun. Igor, a young and enthusiastic ornithologist, piloted our boat and helped us spot the birds. The first ones were red-breasted geese, in their smart military outfits with their fluffy platoons of young strung out beside them. Along the banks of the river, we saw golden plover, Lapland longspur, the sleek Sabine gull, massive herring gulls, and rock ptarmigan. Then we saw an Arctic fox, one of the bird's chief predators. And we caught a glimpse of the musk oxen we had come so far to see. But at the noisy sound of our boat, they soon hurried away from us. At this time of the year, the whole tundra is vibrant with life. But although the countryside is vast, it is in itself a dwarf landscape. We're now north of the tree line, into the tundra. And here, everything becomes smaller. The trees, for example, this is 15 years old. It reaches as far as your ankle. And as you get further and further north, of course, all the trees, all the plants, all the shrubs get smaller and smaller until finally they disappear. Now, what we want to show you in this harsh terrain is how something like the Arctic fox survives. It survives because of the lemming and because of the lemming's babies. Of course, the fox will take the eggs and nestlings of birds, but the mainstay of its daily diet is this fat, busy, and enchanting little rodent. This, believe it or not, is the most important inhabitant of the tundra. These lemmings are, contrary to the way they look, they're tough guys. They will live up here when the Arctic fox and the snowy owl move south because the weather is so bad. They will live under the snow, they'll feed on roots quite happily, and they won't hibernate. They're also sort of landscape gardeners because with their runways and their holes, they churn up the earth and allow the grasses and the shrubs to grow more prolifically. And in consequence, this helps the muskox and the reindeer. And they themselves, of course, provide food for the Arctic fox and all the birds of prey here. And in the years when they have more babies than normal, when they have a sort of population explosion, then the owls and the hawks and the foxes also have a population explosion because they can have more babies, hatch more young. So all in all, the tundra, in fact, wouldn't be the tundra without the lemming.
Because the lemmings play such a central role in tundra ecology, they're the subject of intensive research. The lemming biologist here at Bicada, Yuri, took us to see his study site. He's investigating the yearly changes in numbers of the time-ear lemmings. To do this, he sets buckets into the ground at regular intervals along lemming trails, and the unsuspecting creatures run along their familiar paths and tumble in.
Look, got something there. They're chanting.
Every summer, he works here and in other parts of the preserve where he's put out buckets, and so has built up a picture of the booms and crashes in the lemming population. The more common lemming is plain brown and has a population peak every 3 years. But we had caught another sort, one that Yuri has discovered to have a 4-year cycle. This species turns white in wintertime, and in fact is the only rodent to develop a pure white winter coat. Its summer coat is no less striking, but it's patterned so that it blends in perfectly with its background.
They don't live very long, do they?
I think it's about 2 years.
A couple of years.
Lemming mothers become quite fierce in the defense of their newborns, but the young ones are very trusting.
It's sweet. This one's got a much blacker stripe. Look down the back than this one. This one's got a fainter black stripe.
The claws, they're separated now, but in the wintertime they...
It's sometimes called the hoofed lemming because its foreclaws grow together in a sort of double spade for digging through the snow in winter.
Oh my goodness.
In years of maximum population, lemmings can be seen moving across the tundra in huge numbers. Once it was thought that these migrations were suicide missions. But what actually happens is that the animals overeat their food supply and are out searching for better feeding grounds. Many do die during these mass movements, but it's because they don't find suitable habitat or they drown while crossing rough water, even though they're good swimmers. By studying the population cycles of lemmings, scientists have been able to explain fluctuations in the populations of other tundra species. The dramatic changes in lemming numbers seem to rule the life of the Arctic fox. When lemmings are plentiful, the Arctic fox eats practically nothing else. But when lemmings are less abundant, the fox has fewer babies and becomes restless and agitated. It then turns to an amazing assortment of other foods, from birds and eggs, berries and mushrooms, to reindeer droppings, and dead fish and sea urchins on the Arctic shores. They even come into human settlements and raid garbage cans, gorging themselves on scraps and even inedible things like soap, rags, and paper. Then, if there's a lemming crash and a very hard winter, the fox leaves the tundra, moving into the forest to the south. It can travel further than any other land mammal. Foxes identified in the tundra have been found as much as 2,000 kilometers away from where they were first seen. The family breaks up in autumn, but the parents return to the same den the next year. The den site is covered in wild flowers and tall grasses that grow on the rich soil created by the diggings and debris of fox families over many, many years.
You know, the first job I had was at Whipsnade Zoo in England, and the first creatures I looked after were, in fact, Arctic foxes. And I used to give them about a quarter of a bucket of chopped meat every day. And after about a week, they still kept howling at me and looking plaintive, so I thought I was underfeeding them. So I upped it a bit, and I was giving them nearly half a bucket a day. And this meat used to disappear miraculously. But they still kept howling at me and wanting more. And I couldn't understand this, but before I actually started giving them a full bucket of meat a day, I thought I'd investigate their little enclosure, which had trees and bushes in it. And I found, which is something I didn't know, that Arctic foxes actually create larders. What they'd been doing was taking the meat that they couldn't eat and digging holes under the bushes and things and planting the meat there. Well, of course, this is all very well when you do it here up in the Arctic Circle, because just below this, the ground is frozen. So if there's a great flood of lemmings, you can kill 20 or 30 lemmings, you dig a hole and you put them in, and it's like a deep freeze. But of course, if you do the same thing with horse meat in the warm earth of England, what you get is a series of suppurating larders. And this is exactly what I found, rotting larders of meat. Finally, we caught up with the new king of the tundra. These stocky, muscular animals were most impressive with their shaggy, uncombed fur and massive horns as they moved majestically across their domain. At this time of the year, under the hot sun, the musk oxen were molting away the soft undercoat that had kept them warm all winter, so they looked even more unkempt than usual. As well as this underfur, their most important assets are their horns. With these, they can bulldoze away thick crusts of icy snow in search of winter feed. And in their mating battles in the spring, the horns become formidable weapons.
And no one knows for sure why the muskox died out in the Soviet Union. In any case, their last stronghold was here in the tundra of the Taimyr. And now, as a result of a reintroduction program, the muskox are grazing on land they haven't seen for 3,000 years. Up here in the vast wilderness of the tundra, we came across a bizarre sight, remnants of a fence. These were the enclosures where the first muskoxen were kept. The fences are now in rusty ruins because they're no longer needed. The animals they once protected have been set free.
Вот это первая изгородь, куда мы привезенных из Канады овцевиков поместили на этой тундре, да, первый раз.
Tasha, how big is this? How many kilometers?
Between 1974 and 75, 30 young musk oxen were brought here from North America to begin a most unusual conservation story. At first, they were placed in pens of 18 hectares, and as they grew accustomed to the sights, sounds, scents and tastes of their new home, they were moved to even larger enclosures. The first babies were born in 1978, and in the autumn of the following year, the first small herd was released. Within 7 years of the start of the project, all the musk oxen had been set free.
We have built 5 fences.
Why did you build 5?
For the greater amount of pastures, for good pasturing.
I see, so that when we
the
finish...
population grows and the pasture grows, grows and grows.
Потом стадо росло, так сказать, там им нужно был активный выпуск, чтобы они свободно приносили приплод в загонах. То есть свободно, как почти на воле.
Besides pasturing, the animals must be active.
Yes.
They must actively move.
Yes, yes.
In some time, when they had the adaptation to this habitat,
Yes.
they didn't go in any distance.
Such was the care and attention devoted by Grigori and his co-workers to the gradual acclimatization of the animals, the wild herds have chosen to stay within the lush Picardo River Valley.
At the island of Banks, the Canadian scientists had caught the animals.
Grigori has been involved in the project since the very beginning. It was he who accompanied the first young musk oxen on their long flight from Canada. He remembers the journey as being very exhausting, not just for himself, but for the animals.
So on this enormously long trip all the way from Canada to Taimyr, it must have been very, very tiring and so on. But were there any funny things that happened?
Хотя дорога и длинная была, но...
He told us about when he finally arrived in Norilsk, the Arctic town that was the last stop before Picardo, and about the reaction of the people who'd all gathered around for their first look at the animals. None of them knew what to expect.
It was one amusing moment, one amusing for the people. The musk oxen, the animals were very tired because of large journey. So the people had pushed them from the plain into the land.
Yes.
And they had begun roar,
Yes.
very terrible roar. The people of Tundra, the people of Norilsk, the people didn't hear this roar before.
Yes.
That is why they're very afraid. That is why everybody had felt themselves as a prehistoric man.
Prehistoric man,
Yes. Because the musk oxen are the animals from the Stone Century. So, all the ecological...
To have Stone Age creatures return to their homeland in the 20th century is not just a major achievement in conservation, but a superb example of countries working together to preserve wildlife.
They give them babies. They give babies, so the population grows. That is why we want to tell thank you. To tell thank you to Canada, yes.
Every year the herds are censused in a rather unusual way, and we went to see how it was done. The chief actor in this drama is a husky called Deke. He's transported by helicopter to where the musk oxen are. As soon as the animals were spotted, Deke got very, very excited, for his big moment had come. Once out of the helicopter, Deke dashed off towards his quarry, barking abuse.
Where I go chasing without.
He harried the herd until they formed a defensive circle. Every time they broke away, Deke rushed round them busily and made them form another muskox fortress, the time-honored way they deal with their enemies, wolves or man.
Yes, a huge
Dog's having a whale of a time. They're marvelous creatures. Now, the moment we came down in the helicopter, we let the husky out, and he had a marvelous time rounding up these muskox, as a sheepdog would round up sheep. And the interesting thing about them, I think I'm right in saying they're the only ungulate that forms a defensive circle. They keep the babies inside, and they face outwards with a sort of hedge of horns against predators like wolves, for example. While Deke did his noisy roundup, it allowed us to remain near the herd. It was an enormously exciting experience to be able to stand beside the wild musk oxen, and we felt very grateful for this opportunity. Gregory explained that there were 22 animals in this group. Shortly after the first 10 animals arrived from Canada, a further 20 were sent by the United States. Now, 12 years later, over 100 musk oxen graze on the Taimyr tundra. Getting so close not only allows Gregory to observe the condition of the adults and babies, but he can take detailed photographs of each animal for individual identification, and so record the steady growth of the herd. When you look at the tundra today, with its strange plant and animal life, you realize that this has come down to us virtually unchanged over tens of thousands of years. And it's a great privilege to be in an antique land like this, with this strange silence only broken by the wind and the cry of birds. It's when I'm in a place like this that I always think to myself, it's rather extraordinary how man, who is a comparative newcomer in our world, has taken over the planet. He's taken over all the habitats, and he controls the world. So it now comes to a point where is mankind going to be a protector of this world we live in, or is he going to destroy it for some greedy, short-term advantage? It's when you're in a vast reserve like this in the Soviet Arctic that you realize the great importance of preserving huge tracts of land, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. The story of the return of the muskox is the epitome of what can be done in conservation when countries cooperate with each other. In this case, the Soviet Union, Canada, and the United States all came together in an effort to ensure that this wonderful animal returned to Taimyr, to graze under the midnight sun after 3,000 years' absence. Surely we can use such a spirit of cooperation and friendship in other, more important ventures. Let us hope that the story of the muskox points the way. So our trip was over, and we'd seen many wonderful things. Capercaillie strutting and singing in the snow, the seals and sables of Lake Baikal, the saiga of the steppes, the strange creatures of the desert, and the muskoxen of the Arctic. But as well, we had met the people who cared for and protected these creatures in this vast and beautiful country.